Welcome to episode number 60 of the Silver Lined Relaunch. And today I have the pleasure of bringing you Holly Haynes. Holly is a 20-year corporate strategist. She holds an MBA, a PMP, a Prosky certified, all these different things. Not only does she have all of that, she's had 2 successful businesses in the last 6 years, and she's had a top 200 podcast. Crush the Rush. And we are going to get into some amazing conversation today. So let's get the conversation started. You're listening to the Silver Lined Relaunch, and I'm your host, Hillary DeCesar, award-winning entrepreneur and transitional coach. Each week, I'll invite you to tune into inspirational stories, revealing how you too can turn ordinary experiences into the extraordinary. Feeling stuck? I'll share step-by-step strategies to fuel your ability to experience a life where silver linings are both abundant and possible. Hey there, and welcome to the Silver Lined Relaunch. And today, I love conversations when I can bring you new perspectives, ideas that kind of make me think like, yeah, I'm like fired up on this one. And so today I have Holly Haynes with me, and there is no doubt that there is going to be some interesting conversations heading your way. So welcome, Holly.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, it's so great. And you know what? I love all of the relaunches that I hear about. I love how people share their stories about really, for so many of us, sometimes they come out of left field. Sometimes they're like planned and it's just a terrible thing, but they have to do it. They know they have to do it. And it's the silver linings that come from them that I think are so important for us all to hear, that things aren't always just the way they're planned. Things aren't always, one step at a time. Sometimes you get diverted along the way. So for those that don't know you, please let us know more about you and about your relaunch.
Yeah, so my name is Holly Haynes. I am in Columbus, Ohio. I have twin daughters who are 7. We are in full virtual school mode now for the last year. I work full-time for a nonprofit, and in the last year, so March of 2020, I completely relaunched my I guess you would call it my side business, my side hustle, which is truly a full-time hustle.
The side hustle. Usually those side hustles are, right?
It's a full-time hustle. But I got my start in network marketing about 6 years ago, and I just had this calling that I wanted to do things a little bit differently. And so in January of last year, I should also mention I have a 20-year career in corporate strategy. So I work for Fortune 500 companies. I've done consulting, I've traveled, I've done a lot of that. And I was like, I really want to bring that to the small business owner, to, the moms that are sitting at their kitchen table and like, what the heck do I do? So if I was helping these Fortune 500 companies, like, why can't I help, my friends and my colleagues that are sort of side hustling along with me? And so I had this brilliant idea that you have on sort of like New Year's Eve, and you're like, I'm going to change it up this year. And so, I went in with a plan, and I decided I was going to launch a podcast, and that was how I was going to sort of pivot my content and my shift. And then my first episode of the podcast came out. It's actually almost been exactly a year, March 15th of last year. And then COVID hit the United States, literally that week. The day my podcast came out, it was like, this is a national pandemic. And I was like, oh my God, what do you do? Do you just keep, and my focus is, strategy and productivity. And I was like, can you talk about this when,
Holly, I love this. I love this because I started my podcast almost 1 year ago right now, but it's because I got COVID. and I
Oh,
lost my voice. And I'm like,
yeah.
as soon as my voice gets back, I am launching a podcast. So I love
Yeah.
that you did it exactly the same time, but yours was right before COVID and mine was like 2 weeks
Yeah.
after.
Yeah. So, it was just one of those moments where it really went nothing went as my like perfect plan was in
Mm.
January. Um, but fast forward a year later and I really, there were tons of ups and downs, which we can talk about, but I ended up launching a whole brand, a podcast, I have a couple courses under my belt, and then sort of the biggest pivot was I launched a mastermind in December. So I have 11 women that I'm mentoring now through a mastermind. And then I ended up getting a partnership with a publishing company in Canada, and I'm coming out with a planner this spring. So,
Okay. All
it's
right.
sort
All
of
right.
like
All right. This
taking the
has been
year.
like, yeah. So there are those that have struggled and had so many hardships during this last year. And there are those that have had the greatest relaunch in the last 12 months. And the reason I was so excited to get you on the show is that you've had that. I mean, listen to
Yeah.
all these wonderful things. You decided to take this action. You're going to do it. And by the way, I have twins as well. So
No,
it's
you do.
just
I
like,
don't think I knew that. That's amazing. We need a
yeah,
whole conversation about
we need a
that.
whole conversation because I'm kind of like mama bear for you because my twins
Yeah.
are 23, just
Oh, well, I could
graduated
ask.
from yeah, just graduated from college. And because of working at home, I've got one in the kitchen right now, right around the
Yeah.
corner. I mean, so it's been this whole thing. And the twin sister is actually did move out. She's now officially in San Francisco, and my
Oh,
youngest
nice.
Rosie is down at school. So I as soon as you said the 7, I'm like,
Oh,
oh
yeah. We've had
wow.
kindergarten and first grade. So like learning to
Oh,
read, how to do math. I mean,
oh,
it's been a
Holly.
lot, a lot.
Yeah, you know what? God love you. God love you, girl, because I had flashbacks when you said that. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Woo. Okay, but back to you. Back to this and back to this incredible year that you've had. When you started saying you launched something and COVID hits. And you put your we all know launching a podcast, it's blood, sweat, and tears. You kind of are like, and you
Yeah.
have to have commitment. I think it's the
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
C right there. But when you found out, okay, wait, it's COVID, I'm trying to put out there all of these great things around business, nobody's doing anything. What were you thinking, and what did you do at that point? How did you decide to keep it going?
Well, I mean, I felt like I didn't really have a choice because you get nervous that you're going to fail, but it's like I only had one episode out. Like I can't just cancel the darn thing. So I just kept going. And I really thought about, okay, well, what do women in my position need to hear now? And so we started like very basic. I mean, it was like, let's talk about time management. Let's talk about how to get through the day. It wasn't like a lot of the business strategy stuff that I talk about now, but like those are the most popular episodes. And so I'm starting to bring them back because it's what people keep asking for. And so
Isn't it
I just,
true? It's so interesting because I don't care if I'm working with somebody who's never launched a business or somebody who is running, a couple $100 million company. Time management
yeah,
is always a top priority. They
yeah,
may not realize it, but when I sit there and I talk about time, money, and team, and they're like, time, what? And I say, what are you doing? How are you managing your time right now? And it's like,
yeah.
well, I mean, it's the fastest place to get the most impact right away.
Yeah. So I really focused in on that first. And then um, I hired a coach so that I wasn't doing it by myself. And that's an investment in itself. So now I'm like, well, I'm definitely in it because I've now hired somebody to help me. So we're just going to keep going. And so every week, it really came down to what is my goal this week? What am I going to do? Maybe it's one podcast episode. Maybe it's, brainstorming my course. Like I always had one goal a week. And then every week I kept doing it. And so it's like very small baby steps over time. And I'm like the most ridiculously consistent person I show up every morning. I always say my morning business hours are like 6 to 7:30 because it's before everyone's up. And so I have that like one thing that I'm going to work on, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7:30. And I just kept going. Like there's not like some secret. I just didn't give up. I just kept going.
But I think that's, in a way, that is something that people need to hear also, that even during the climate of what was going on, you chose to show up,
Yeah.
during those early hours. And by the way, as a mom of three, I
Yeah.
remember, running companies, and I actually realized, because I had East Coast, I had all these different, people, I had to get up at 3:30.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some 4:30 mornings for sure.
Just to get it done before I had to become the short order chef
Yeah.
and start making, all the different breakfasts and lunches and everything. So there is that, you have to show persistence. And you also did something that I am right there with you, which is you hired a coach. Accountability is huge.
Mhm.
Isn't it funny how we can coach others, but
Yeah.
we need it too.
Yeah.
There's just something about somebody saying, did you do what you said you were going to do? And
Yeah.
I mean, and it is a like, woo, when you get it done, you're like, yeah. And you realize how much you can get done. And I love what you said about the tiny steps. Tell me a little bit about that. How did you determine like how small and what you were really going to focus on?
Yeah. So I always say, during the week for me, it's kind of survival. Like I don't have a lot of time to like create a course or, create like those big things that you need to get out there, like a website or whatever. So a lot of times what I will do is Saturday mornings are I call it like my big creative block. So everyone's asleep, 6 to, 8 or 8:30. Like that's my time where I'm like doing like the strategy and the vision. Like if I want to create a course, then I'm going to like, map out, I think it's going to take me, 3 weeks. And then each week I'm going to pick out like maybe one goal that I'm going to accomplish each week. Or if you're going to start a podcast, like I didn't know how to start a podcast. So my first goal was I'm going to take a course on how to start a podcast. And then the next step is going to be, I'm going to get the equipment. And so like each week I had a goal, but I would typically sort of plan that visionary piece out. I still do on Saturday mornings. And then during the week, I try to keep it, I call it the cake method. I pick 3 things. I'm super into lists, if you can't tell. 3 things that are my focus for the day. One of them is typically my 9 to 5. There's something going on there. The other is typically family related. And then the third is typically business related. So if you think of, there's a 3-layer cake, that's what my focus is for the day. Everything else is sprinkles. Super easy to remember. Then you think
I love this.
Yeah,
The 3
you can talk about.
I think that's so great. So you first work on the cake, the 3, and then if you do anything else, it's the sprinkles on top. Oh, that's so great.
So I go into the day, I write it down every morning of like, here's my 3 things.
Mm-hmm.
And all the time, every day, Monday through Friday, I have one that's related to business. And if you think about sort of my process, Saturdays, I said, okay, I'm going to create a course. So maybe it was like writing out the outline of the course. That was going to be my goal for the week. And then when I had that like hour time, Monday through Friday, then I would create that outline. I mean, it was like very basic, small steps, but it was very planned out and very strategic in how I use my time.
Oh, I love that. And then when you did this, are you a whiteboard? Are you a Post-it note? What seems to work well when you're brainstorming on those Saturday mornings that you're like,
I'm looking at my desk right now. I have a whiteboard sitting next to me. I have 2 in front of me and I have like 12 Post-it notes. So, I tend to be like a big brain dump fan. And I tell my clients this a lot, like just get all the ideas out on paper, and you have to have like an hour or 2 to do this. Like it's not I only have 30 minutes. I'm going to rush through this. It's definitely one of those like bigger time blocks. So I'd really just brain dump everything and just, what words come out, like what themes come out, and then you kind of let it sit for a minute. And that's really good to do on the weekends because you don't have a lot of meetings. And so that's typically where my most creative time came from. And then I would sort of plug it into, okay, maybe I need to flesh this out a little bit more. I'm going to do that this week. So probably brain dumping on like a Google Doc might be my method.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, you know what I find, and I'm laughing because if you could see my office right now, I've got my whiteboard. And by the way, my nirvana is walking into a room that has whiteboards all over the
Yeah,
walls.
I
It's
love it.
like, it's like,
Yeah.
it's just singing my song. And then I too have all of the Post-its and when I'm in launch mode, my office is just like the big, gigantic post-it,
Yeah.
board. Oh my gosh, it's so great. They're all over the
Yeah.
room. And I
Yeah.
laugh because I take pictures of it and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I go back and I review them before the next launch just to make sure, and each time I do it differently. It's never the same. But I'm sitting here right now. And as much as I want to use my whiteboard, it's got this really cool image on it and it's
Yeah.
huge. And I'm thinking, even if I take a picture, like I won't be able to look at it all the time. So I'm actually contemplating right now going and getting another whiteboard for my room. And it makes me happy. Like I'm like,
Yeah. I have
yeah.
a
Okay.
lot in here.
Okay. So you talked about creating a mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share what does that mean? I think that there's a lot of misconceptions these days about what a mastermind is. People are using it in different contexts.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're doing. And you created a mastermind during the actual pandemic.
Yeah, we had a couple of calls this week and I was talking to my coach and she's like, Holly, like she said basically what you just said. And I was like, I don't even know how it happened. It just like, it was my vision and I followed the process and then we like got there. So yeah, just trust your gut, I guess, on that one. But when I thought about, like, if you go back to, I was talking about my story in January and, I've always had this passion for women's leadership. Like I got my MBA and I founded a couple of women's leadership groups, like in my consulting career. And I was like, I really got to find a better way to just help women get out of the rut of, what they're doing and just know that they can do more. And I kept getting the feedback that like people are burnt out on Zoom. They don't want to take a course. Like they don't have time to like sit and listen to hours of videos and they don't want to. And they were craving community. Like they're craving connection and to talk to people. And it would be amazing to do it in person. And hopefully that's coming soon. But so I was like, okay, what does that look like? Again, going back to the brainstorming. So my mastermind is 6 months. And, it's what you would typically expect with a mastermind, except I've added in productivity and accountability because those are the things that help me the most. So, every other week we've got, our training calls and our sort of working sessions together. We have group office hours, almost like you had in college, where you could like log in and we're all there and we're working and you can ask questions. And so it's holding you accountable, right? So you've got, like your weekly call during the week where we're talking about, let's just say strategy. And then you've got a follow-up office hours where you're getting in and you're actually doing the work and you've got it set on your calendar. And I'm reminding you that you need to show up because you enrolled in this mastermind. So we do that. We also have, I do Friday, I call them wins of the week. So wows. And we like really try to focus on, what we accomplished that week. So you can start to see the big picture and then you see like those, it's basically my process that I followed.
Yeah.
And
what's great about it is that you are actually creating probably during these sessions that you're working, you're creating your business. You're like starting to, that is dedicated time for yourself as well.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's called the collective because, on Fridays we check in and we say, what are our wins of the week? But like, what do you need from the group? And then I, work with each individual member to come up with like, okay, well, what's our content for the next month? Like if 5 people are launching, then we're going to talk about launching. If, 2 people are really educated on Pinterest, then maybe we talk about Pinterest. So
Okay. So Holly, clearly I love the name because I have My membership group is called the Relaunch Collective.
Oh, nice.
So you and I, it is all about the collective. It is.
I just love that word.
It's
It
so
came
great.
out in my brainstorming, right? Like going back to the process.
You know what? I love that. And I want to talk about, as we sit here and, people might be like, oh, she's got a collective, Hillary's got a collective, all these different things. You're a coach, I'm a coach. We have masterminds, we have all these things similar. And people ask me all the time, when you bring somebody on, do you think like, oh, they could be a competitor? Why do you do that? And I know why I do it. I do it because your vibe, your tribe is going to be different than mine.
Yeah.
But there's always collaboration that is so important, especially I believe as a woman.
Yeah.
And especially when we think about, helping and nurturing and growing each other, that's when it starts to be interesting for me. I don't want to be in a silo. I don't want to be over there. I want to be at the table with other amazing women and saying, okay, you're doing that. That's cool. I'm going to start to do a little bit of this. And they're like, oh, I could do that in a different way. And the way that you would deliver it and the way that I would deliver it is always, it's different. It is.
Yeah.
How do you feel? How do you feel about that?
Yeah. So it's interesting you said that because I just did a podcast on the benefits of doing a podcast. And the number one thing that happened from doing a podcast was community. And it was exactly what you said. I ended up like very informally forming this like network of amazing businesswomen that have, helped me, or I've helped them, or they've been on my podcast, or I've been on their podcast, or I've hired them because I need help with, XYZ, or they've hired me or referred me. And I never expected it to grow the way that it grew so fast. And I think that's why podcasting is like one of my favorite things, along with the collective, because it is all community. Like there are clients in my collective that do the exact same thing I do, but they do it very differently. And their focus is just a little bit different. And there's so many people in the world that need help. So I just think if we all help each other, then we're all going to be successful. And so I really shifted my mindset, I think, from like, I think in network marketing, sometimes it's like very sales based. And I was like, it's going to be community based, and this is how I'm going to do it. And I did it very differently.
I'm right there with you. I think it is community based right now. People don't want to sit there and say, all right, here are all the modules, here are all the videos, go watch them. And hey, good luck, little pat on the back, go out there and, create that company, create that vision. It just, entrepreneurship is lonely. It is like, let me scream it from the mountaintops. It is a lonely existence if you let it be. But when there are groups like Holly's and others that you can come together, it all of a sudden it's like, you have those working sessions, which by the way, I love those. Those are like my
they're magic.
Oh, and I like sit there and I'm like, I'm working side by side. It's like, oh, this is pretty darn cool. So, all right. So the silver linings that have come from this year, what would those be for you?
I think one is definitely community, because it is lonely. And I think knowing that you're not in it by yourself, and there are others that are, there to help you and want to help you. And it's not all this like perfectness that you see on Instagram or wherever all the time. I think the other is honestly like just having that belief in yourself. And I don't think it really hit me because, I'm not going to lie, it's been a busy year and there are definitely a lot of ups and downs. But when you sort of get through it on the other end, and, you have that moment where like you are hosting a mastermind with, 11 amazing ladies on it. And you're like, wow, I didn't have a business last year at this time. And now I'm here. Like you sort of forget all the stuff that happened in the middle. And so I think it's, I read somewhere that somebody said they started like not like a gratitude notebook, but I can't remember the word, where you're writing down like your wins. And so I just want to remember sort of like the good moments, so that when the bad moments do happen, and I know they will, I can go back to it and say like, hey, you're going to get through this. Like you've got to, have the ups and downs. And I think just believing in yourself.
Oh, I totally agree. And for every 5 negative thoughts you have, you get 1
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
So when you're going down that path, you better have that journal ready and open.
Right.
And, I always say it's the gratitude forward. I'm like looking at it.
Right.
I'm like, oh yeah, can hardly wait for those things to come in. You have to just keep pulling them in. That's amazing. So, okay. In what we always do at the end here, as we wrap up, is we do a rapid fire series of questions.
Okay.
And first and foremost, what are you most excited about doing when the world opens up?
I think it's going on vacation without children. It just sounds really, I mean, my kids will probably listen to this like 10 years from now, but I think they'll get it. Like, it's just been a lot. And I think we all need just a day.
What was the last vacation you had alone with your husband?
Oh gosh. It's actually probably been before the girls were born. So it's been like a good.
Now you're really kicking yourself, right? Well, the good news is that you're going to plan it. You're going to do this.
Yeah, no, we are. And we're there. Time to do it.
All right. What is your favorite beauty product and the name of it?
Oh, good question. I've actually been super into researching organic beauty products, and I'm super into this Tula. It's Tula is the brand, and they have this like pumpkin scrub mask or like use it daily. I ordered like 5 of them in December because I just loved the smell of like cinnamon and pumpkin. And so I've been using that.
Oh, love that. We'll check that out.
Yeah.
And then when we have an opportunity to get back out by the pool, what is your favorite poolside drink?
Oh,
and it could be a beverage.
Wow.
It could be a non-alcoholic, alcoholic, doesn't matter. But what is your favorite?
I mean, I would probably go with like a skinny margarita. Probably.
Can I tell you,
pretty amazing.
That is the number one drink that I end up getting. And by the way, that would be my choice too. Okay. And then last but not least, what does a powerhouse of possibility mean to you?
That is a great question. I think it's just not giving up. I think a powerhouse is something or someone that like you keep powering through. And so you just keep going. Like nothing is ever going to go as planned, which is very ironic because I'm very into planning. But you don't change your goal, right? You change the plan. So
I like that. You don't change the goal, you change the plan.
Yeah.
Very, very good. So how can people get in touch with you? How can they find out more?
Yeah. So you can go to hollymariehaynes.com. You can download my Side Hustle Starter Kit, and it has all of my sort of routine and strategy that I follow. And then I hang out most on Instagram, same name, Holly_Marie_Haynes. And then my podcast is called Crush the Rush, and I do 2 a week, and I talk about all of this as well.
Crush the rush. Okay. Love that. So Holly, thank you so much for being here today and sharing this incredible wisdom around how you've done it. And congratulations on such an amazing year. I'm excited to just see your progress and watch you just become like that enormous crush the rush. You're rushing into this. So thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Silver Lined Relaunch. If I said something today that resonated with you, will you please head over to iTunes right now and leave us a 5-star review and share this episode with others and help them find the silver linings as well. And don't forget, you can have immediate access to the show notes, any giveaways, and the links to those amazing beauty products at therelaunchco.com/podcast. Until next time, There's always a silver lining. And now is the time to hit the reset button to relaunch those transitions into transformations.